She never liked music. At least, that's what she always said, until the day she came home with a new guitar case in her hands. I was washing dishes in the kitchen when she walked in. Her hands were gripping the black case tightly, as if it might vanish if she let go. There was something new in her eyes, a subtle excitement. "Did you buy a guitar?" I wiped my hands on a towel, unable to hide my surprise. She nodded, blushing slightly. "Yes, I decided to give it a try. There are evening classes at the studio on the corner." I smiled, trying to conceal my confusion. Just yesterday, she was saying that she didn't have the talent or patience for music. But today, her voice sounded different, confident, with a quiet determination. "That's great," I said, making sure not to sound skeptical. "Want me to help you with the chords?" "No need," she replied softly. "We'll have a teacher. They say he's really good." I noticed how she ran her fingers along the case's zipper, as if checking to make sure the guitar was still there. A brief pause hung in the room. I held back the urge to joke about her sudden musicality and chose to support her instead. Maybe it was just a new phase, a search for herself, but somewhere deep inside, something prickly stirred. Felt like I was a stranger to this sudden passion. "Well then, show me when you learn." I smiled. She nodded, but her gaze was distant, as if in her thoughts she was already there, in that studio on the corner, among new sounds and people I didn't belong to. When she went to the room, I lingered in the kitchen longer than usual, listening to the unexpected silence. Why did I feel so uneasy? That evening, after she fell asleep, I quietly approached the guitar case. I unzipped it slightly and peeked inside. The guitar was there, brand new with a tag. But something still didn't sit right. I ran my hand over the case, thick fabric. I thought about how she held it, gripping it too tightly, as if afraid to lose it. I closed the zipper back and lay down next to her. She was breathing evenly, peacefully. But in that calmness, there was something foreign. I tried to find an answer, but sleep never came. The next day, coming home from work, I noticed the same case hanging on the hallway hook. The guitar was in the room on a stand, but the case was in the corridor. "Why did she put it there?" I asked, but she replied briefly, "Just more convenient." Yet somehow the answer felt forced. I noticed another odd detail. There was a faint mark on the handle, as if someone had tried to wipe off something written with a marker. I moved closer and made out the remains of the inscription, A.S. What did that mean? The name of the teacher started swirling in my mind. Why hadn't she told me anything about him? A sense of unease settled inside, but I didn't show it. I just hugged her a bit tighter that evening than usual and noticed how she tensed for a moment before smiling as always. But there was something subtly insincere in that smile. She came back from her guitar lesson with a sparkle in her eyes and a few newly learned chords. But what surprised me wasn't that. It was how confidently her fingers moved for a beginner. She walked into the apartment, kicking off her sneakers on the way and leaning the guitar against the wall. I was setting dinner on the table. "How was the lesson?" I asked, trying to sound genuinely interested. "Just amazing." She smiled broadly, maybe a bit too broadly. "I learned a couple of chords today. Want to hear?" I nodded, feeling a slight chill in my chest. She picked up the guitar, awkwardly settled on the couch and started playing. A simple melody, a sequence of chords that sounded unusually smooth for someone who just picked up the instrument. "You're really good," I praised, not hiding my surprise. "Are you sure it was your first lesson?" She froze for a second, then smiled sheepishly. "Well, the teacher says I have a good ear. And also," she stopped as if sensing something in my tone, "I just listened a lot at the studio while waiting." I nodded, but inside, something shifted like a shadow in warm light. Her fingers moved deftly, without the usual clumsiness of a novice, as if she had known how to hold a guitar for a long time. When she finished playing, I clapped my hands. "You're definitely talented." "You think so?" She blushed, but her eyes sparkled. "I just feel alive, you know? Like I found something of my own." She put the guitar aside and went to take a shower, while I remained in the kitchen, thinking over her words. Feeling alive, When was the last time she said something like that about anything related to me? On the edge of the table lay a guitar pick. Small, blue, with an engraving. I picked it up and absent-mindedly ran my finger over it. I twirled it between my fingers, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a studio accessory? Or a gift? Water started running in the bathroom. I put the pick back in its place and forced myself to exhale. Maybe I was just overthinking. But the strange feeling, as if I'd missed something, wouldn't go away. That evening, I came home earlier than usual. A quiet, melodic strumming of strings was coming from the apartment, but it stopped abruptly as soon as I opened the door. She was sitting on the couch, slightly hunched over the guitar, as if trying to hide the instrument from my gaze. "You're home already?" She smiled, but there was a hint of surprise in her voice. "Had less work?" I explained, throwing my jacket onto a chair. "What are you playing?" "Oh, just an exercise." She looked down and started plucking the strings with her fingers. "I don't remember the name." I sat down next to her, trying not to loom. She started playing again, this time without words. I heard that same melody, gentle and sad, yet strangely familiar. I found myself trying to grasp the tune, as if she was trying to tell me something through it. "You're doing well," I praised, listening to her soft humming. "Is this from your lesson?" "Yes, well, sort of." She quickly put the guitar aside. "Just improvising." "Interesting improvisation. You're learning fast." Her hand twitched, as if I'd hurt her. I'm trying. It helps me relax." While she was making tea, I picked up the guitar and ran my fingers over the strings. The melody swirled in my head, and I tried to repeat it, but it didn't work. My version sounded clumsy and awkward. When she returned with the mugs, I carefully asked, "What song is that? You've hummed it before, right?" She froze for a moment, closing her eyes. "No, just a tune stuck in my head. Maybe someone at the studio played it." Her answer didn't sound convincing, but I nodded. I put the guitar back and pretended everything was fine. But something in her voice, in how her fingers trembled when I asked, kept bothering me. While we drank tea, I kept trying to decipher that melody, but it remained elusive, like a secret I couldn't grasp. Why did that melody sound like she was singing it not for me? I came home later than usual. A meeting ran long. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I heard her voice. Quiet, gentle, as if she was afraid someone might overhear. She was humming that same melody. I quietly took off my shoes and went to the living room. On the table lay her laptop, not fully closed. The screen was dimly lit, showing a guitar chord tutorial. But the sound wasn't coming from there. It was coming from her phone, left on the dresser. I moved closer. The screen showed music playing from a messenger app, a song titled Second Chance. I hit pause, trying to process. Why was that melody on her phone if she was learning from the laptop? I went back to the kitchen and sat at the table, listening to the silence. It didn't make sense. If it was a lesson melody, why listen to it separately? And why did she seem so immersed in it when singing? A few minutes later, she came out of the bedroom, a slight smile on her face, as if she'd just returned from another world. She saw me and looked a bit flustered. "You're home already?" "Yeah." I smiled, trying to hide my unease. "Were you listening to something?" "Oh, yes." She quickly muted her phone. "Just going over the lesson melody." I nodded, but inside something scraped at me, as if I was convincing myself that everything was fine. "It's beautiful." "What's the song about?" Change." She hesitated. "About finding yourself again." Her answer sounded vague, but I didn't press. I tried to change the subject, but a shadow of doubt already hung between us. When she went to make dinner, I discreetly checked her phone lying on the couch. The screen was locked, and I didn't dare enter a password. But the melody kept playing in my head, as if trying to tell me more than words. Why was she so absorbed in that song? And why did it feel like she wasn't singing it for herself, but for someone else? The next evening, I decided to stop by the studio after work. I told her I'd be staying late at the office to avoid suspicion. It was already dark when I parked at the corner. I didn't know what exactly I was expecting, but a dull anxiety thudded inside me. The music studio looked perfectly ordinary. An old building with a faded sign and dim light from the windows. I moved closer, staying in the shadows. Inside, through the large window, I saw her sitting on a high stool, leaning over the guitar. The teacher, tall, dark-haired, with a casually buttoned shirt, was standing next to her, gently touching her hand to correct a chord. I couldn't hear the words, but from his lips, I could tell. He was singing that same melody. She laughed softly, as if afraid to break the moment. He smiled too, and in that exchange of glances, there was something painfully personal. Not just a lesson, not just a teacher and student. I stuffed my hands in my pockets, feeling the cold wind burn my face. Suddenly, everything became crystal clear. The melody she was so obsessed with wasn't just a song. It was a bridge between them, their personal connection, hidden from me behind the veil of lessons. Suddenly, he leaned toward her ear and whispered something. She shook her head, but her smile didn't fade. I felt a surge of anger. Not at her, but at myself for still trying to rationalize everything. I turned away, struggling to make sense of what I'd seen. My heart pounded loudly, and the melody they shared kept echoing in my mind. It no longer belonged to me. I didn't know what to do. Burst inside or just walk away, but something kept me rooted. A foolish hope for a mistake. I'll translate the new part for you. Staying in the shadows, I watched as the lesson ended. She stood up, fixed her hair, and walked out with him. I gripped the steering wheel, trying not to reveal myself. When they got outside, he lightly touched her shoulder. She didn't pull away. The world suddenly felt empty and silent. I realized the lie had already taken root, and I had been turning a blind eye to it for too long. I sat in the dark kitchen, absent-mindedly spinning that blue pick in my hands. The cold plastic felt especially alien. My thoughts were tangled. Anger and hurt gave way to bitter regret. The keys turned quietly in the lock. I froze, trying not to reveal my presence. She entered without turning on the light and quietly walked to the bedroom. I heard her place the guitar in the corner, sigh, and sit on the bed. A phone call broke the silence. "Yes, I'm home." Her voice sounded muffled, as if she didn't want anyone to hear. No, he didn't notice. Everything's as usual. I felt a chill run down my spine. I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to breathe. "I miss you too." Her voice faltered slightly. "It was the most beautiful melody you've written." I squeezed the pick so hard it almost snapped. Melody, so it wasn't just a song from the lesson. He wrote it for her. Yes, I remember the words. Her voice became softer, warmer. "Second chance. It sounds like it's about us." I barely restrained myself from bursting in and demanding an explanation. But something inside held me back. A bitter fear of hearing the truth I already suspected. "I miss you too, but I can't now. He's home." A pause. "Yes, tomorrow after the lesson. I'll come earlier." The phone conversation ended. She sighed softly, went to the mirror, and started brushing her hair, as if trying to erase something from herself. I went back to the kitchen, quietly turned on the light, and pretended I had just come in. She flinched a little when she saw me. "You're not sleeping? I was waiting for you. How was the lesson?" "Good," she replied, trying to smile. "We stayed a bit late practicing." I nodded, pretending to be tired. "I see. Go to bed. I'll join you soon." She went to the bedroom, and I remained standing in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the pick in my hand. Now it felt less like a trophy and more like a symbol of someone else's victory. I felt something inside me break, and I knew. Tomorrow I had to find out the truth. The night dragged on endlessly. I lay on the edge of the bed, trying not to breathe too loudly. She slept beside me, facing the wall. I could hear her steady breathing, but I knew her thoughts were far away. At dawn, I got up to collect my thoughts. At the kitchen table, the cold tea no longer felt like just a routine. It had become a symbol of my confusion. I kept replaying her phone conversation in my head. Those words felt like I had witnessed someone else's life. When she left for work, I found the studio's website and phone number online. I stared at the screen for a long time, hesitating to press the call button. But then something inside clicked. The pain of the truth was better than doing nothing. Music studio on the corner. Hello. Hi. I wanted to ask about guitar lessons. I'm interested in the teacher. Tall, dark hair. The girl on the other end hesitated a bit. Are you talking about Alex? Yes, he works here. Very popular, lots of people sign up with him. Alex, I repeated, tasting the bitterness in my mouth. How long has he been working with you? Oh, a couple of years now. People say he's really talented. Even those who've never touched a guitar make fast progress. I thanked her and hung up. The name didn't explain much, but something familiar surfaced in my memory. Alex, I strained to recall, and suddenly it hit me. She had mentioned that name once, long before we got married. Alex from school. He's so talented. I grabbed the photo album from the shelf and started flipping through the pages until I found the one I was looking for. A graduation photo. She, in a light dress, standing next to a tall guy with a guitar in his hands. Alex. Her high school love. Now everything fell into place, not just a teacher. An old feeling that seemed long buried under layers of family routine. I closed the album and sat in the silence for a long time, feeling my fists clench. An old friend, an old passion, and a new melody, not for me. I realized that I couldn't wait any longer. Tonight I would go to the studio and see it all for myself, without lies or excuses. The day at work dragged on painfully slowly. I answered calls and made reports mechanically, but my thoughts kept drifting back to yesterday's conversation and the photos from the high school album. An old friend. An old feeling. I kept trying to figure out whether it was a coincidence or a carefully hidden connection. After work, I drove straight to the studio. I parked a little farther away to avoid drawing attention. It was dark, the street was deserted, and only the soft light from the studio window illuminated the corner. I positioned myself across the street, hidden behind a corner, and waited. Suddenly, the door opened. She came out first, adjusting her hair, followed by Alex with a guitar slung over his shoulder. They were laughing. I tensed up, noticing how he leaned toward her ear and said something, making her laugh again, brightly, freely. She hadn't laughed like that with me in a long time. I clenched my fists, feeling a dull rage building inside. They approached his car, and he opened the passenger door for her. She didn't hurry to get in, as if wanting to prolong the moment. Alex leaned down and gently kissed her on the cheek. She didn't pull away. The world around me dimmed. I stood in the shadows as if stripped of my own life, watching them, two people who seemed to have been living in their own reality for a long time without me. My ears rang, but I forced myself not to move. When they drove away, I slowly approached the studio. The door was ajar, someone must have left it open. Inside, it smelled of wood and lacquer. On the counter lay a notebook with the class schedule. I couldn't resist and looked inside. There, on the spine, I saw her name neatly written next to his Anna and Alex. Next to it was the title of the song, Second Chance. Beside it was a note, joint performance at the recital. I closed the notebook, trying to calm the trembling in my hands. All this time, they had been preparing to perform together. It wasn't just lessons, it was a creative partnership. I felt the tears welling up. I had lost long before I even knew the rules of the game. I walked out of the studio into the darkness where the night concealed the pain on my face. I wanted to scream, but I remained silent. Should I say something to her? Or would I just keep hiding the truth as I had been doing all along? When I got home, she still wasn't there. I sat in the kitchen and heard that same melody in my head. Now it sounded different, tearing my heart to pieces. She quietly opened the door as if afraid to wake someone. I sat in the kitchen without turning on the light. In the faint glow of the street lamp, her silhouette seemed unfamiliar. She froze in the doorway when she saw me, and for a moment fear flashed in her eyes. "You're not asleep?" Her voice trembled as if she already knew the conversation wouldn't be easy. "I was waiting for you," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "You were late." She placed her bag on the chair and forced a smile. "The lesson ran long. We're preparing for a performance, and the teacher suggested staying a bit longer." "A performance?" I stood up, looking directly into her eyes. "Why did I have to find out about it by accident?" She looked away as if searching for an excuse. "I wanted to tell you, but you've been so busy lately. And it's just a recital." "Anna," I paused, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Who is Alex?" She flinched as if I had struck her. A second passed, and her face twisted with a mix of guilt and exhaustion. "You followed me?" "I was looking for answers I couldn't hold back. And I found them." "Is Alex just your high school friend? Or something more?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't try to justify herself. "Yes, We went to school together. He was always talented and I just used to dream of being in his place. I clenched my fists trying to stay composed. And now? You think he's your second chance? She turned away, breathing heavily. I don't know. It all started with music. I just wanted to learn, but then I remembered how it felt before. How alive I felt next to him. And with me? My voice softened. Am I just a habit now? She spun around sharply. You've always been there. Always supportive. But I lost myself. And when I saw him, everything flared up again. I didn't plan it. Silence filled the kitchen. I looked at her confused, but as if she had already made a choice. And now what? Will you leave for him? She clasped her hands as if struggling with herself. I don't know. I love you. But this music, this chance to find that old self, I'm not sure if I can give it up. The words hit harder than I expected. I felt something cold spreading through my body. Then choose, I whispered. Music with him or life with me. She looked at me and I realized she hadn't decided yet, and I couldn't stand this uncertainty any longer. I went to the bedroom, leaving her alone in the half-light. My heart ached, realizing that everything I thought was solid had suddenly become fragile and uncertain. In the evening, when I came home from work, she wasn't there. A note lay on the nightstand. We have a concert at 7. If you want, come. Anna. I stared at the short note for a long time, feeling an emptiness growing inside. She was waiting for me to come, to see her choice. Or maybe to show me that the decision had already been made. At 6:30, I finally drove to the studio. The parking lot was crowded. People were walking in with flowers and smiles. I stayed near the entrance, watching the flow of guests. Finally, the lights went out and the music started. I slipped into the hall, staying by the back wall. On the stage stood she, in a simple light dress, with a guitar on her shoulder. Next to her was Alex, already tuning his instrument. She glanced at the audience and suddenly noticed me. Her eyes widened, but she didn't look away, as if searching for support or at least understanding in my reaction. Alex approached the microphone. This song is about second chances, about how the past and the present can intertwine in a melody. We wrote it together. I felt something inside me snap. She wasn't just playing with him. They had created something together, something that never belonged to me. The first chords began to play, the same ones I'd heard at home. She sang softly, with a blend of sadness and gentle longing. The lyrics spoke of the past, lost dreams, and the quest to find oneself. I couldn't leave, even though my heart ached. When the song ended, the hall erupted with applause. She looked at me, both sad and grateful. I understood that she had been waiting for me here to tell the truth through this melody. Her second chance wasn't with Alex, but with herself. After the performance, I went outside. The cool evening wrapped me in silence. I stood by the car, unsure of what to do next. She appeared a few minutes later, already without the guitar. She approached cautiously, as if afraid to shatter the fragile world around us. You came, she said softly. Yes, I wanted to understand. She lowered her eyes. I thought that music would help me feel alive again. But I realized one thing: you were always there. You're my support, even when I didn't know who I was. And him? I asked, holding back the pain. She looked toward the studio. Alex is the past. It just felt easy to be that girl again, the one who once dreamed. But I'm not her anymore. And you're not him. I remained silent, trying to process her words. So, you made your choice? She stepped closer and took my hand. I want to try to rebuild what I've broken. If you're still willing to give me a chance. I looked into her eyes, tired but honest. Inside, resentment and love were fighting. But I knew, if I walked away now, I would lose her for good. Let's try, I whispered. We stood on the empty street, not knowing what lay ahead. But one thing was clear to me. Sometimes, to find each other, you first have to lose yourself.